As it is the court. I think the last question that I had was to the witness. What is it that was in the statement of the witnesses who were in the house which made you to say that their statements were questionable and there was an objection? And then I think soon after the objection, then we went to adjourn for a short adjournment, for a short break. I'm not so sure whether should I then proceed from there or not.
Should I answer? He's asking the court. Yes,
we waiting for the directive from the court. I'm asking the court whether
yes.
Should I then proceed from there or not.
That's how it is.
You have to proceed. As it please the court. And then, immediately after saying, Brigadier, that the statements of those people who were in the house were questionable, you went on to say you were not sure whether they were telling the truth or not. Now, back to the main question. What is it that you found in their statements which made you to say that the statements were questionable and that you were not sure whether they were telling the truth or not?
My Lord, I've answered this question and I'll answer it again. I did not read the statements and find questionable utterances in the statement. I simply said there was an allegation, and I'll try to explain it again, my Lord. There was this allegation that seems to suggest that there were no intruders, which would have meant that the people who were in the house, when they say they were intruders, you can't sugarcoat it, my Lord. It simply would mean they were misleading when they were saying that. That was the inference that I drew, at least myself. So when I say the statements were questionable, it is in that regard, not on the context that were contained. My view was that because there seems to be a dark cloud, and I'm repeating this part, my Lord, regarding the people who were in the house, let me park their statements and try and look at objective evidence to find either evidence that supports that there were people in the house or that discredits that part. That is in that regard, my Lord. And I didn't say there was something that I read and out of that then I cancel or find things that were not reliable. That's not what I've said, my Lord.
Engikushilo ngizokuphinda ke lokho ngoba lo mbuzo kana ngophendulileke ukuthi ke ngoba ke kwakunale insolo lezi ezazithi ke cha babengekho abantu abangena ngaleli langa laphana endlini. Lokho ke akukho ukuthi ke ungakulungiselela ke uma ukusho uzokusha nje njengoba kunjalo ukusho ukuthi ke manje uma abantu abesendlini bethi kunabantu abangena uma kunalezi insolo lezi lokho kusho ukuthi ke bayakhohlisana noma baqamba amanga ke labo bantu. Yingakho ke ngathi ke lokho abakushoyo bona angindimeke ke ngibheke obunye ubufakazi ukuthi khona yini ubufakazi obuhambisana nalento abayishoyo ukuthi ngempela bakhona abantu abangena hayi ukuthi ngafunda abakushoyo ngase ngithi cha la baqamba amanga kwayingasikona lokho kodwa ngenxa yensolo ezazikhona.
Yes, that's my answer, my Lord.
You know, without laboring this point, I'm going to ask it for the last time. Why do you say their statements are questionable?
My Lord, I've answered again. And I don't know how many times I've said this question. And I've dealt with this, my Lord, even during my evidence in chief, that there was a cold case analysis. I had to analyze. I've explained it. This is not a new answer, my Lord. I've explained that the first point of departure was to find a direction as to whether they were intruders or not, in order to formulate the investigation plan. In other words, we are pursuing the people who are in the house or the alleged perpetrators. There was no something untoward that I found in the statement. I'm simply saying this part was questionable, and the other part, my Lord, that I referred to when I said long way, I think I dealt with this part, that even what made me to look at his vehicle movement, his cell phone, is because in this allegation, it was said that he was a possible shooter. So I needed to see if I can place him together with the others, or at least with a phone that went to a different direction in the event that was a shooter. So I even used the term, my Lord, that it was a fact-finding mission, not that I've analyzed each and every statement and found that it was concerning or untruth. I've never said that even in my evidence in chief, my Lord.
Uphendule lo mbuzo ngizophendula ke futhi ukuthi lana kwangasikona ngoba ke kunalezi insolo ezazikhona ke okunye futhi na ingabe ngikhulumile nangaye ulongwe ukuthi ke ezinye insolo zazithi ke ulongwe uyena ke owadubula kwakubheka ukuthi nanjengoba khona kunalo makhala okukhunye ke owahamba kulunye uhlangothi ukuthi kwakungakhoba khona yini ukuthi ke ngimhlanganise noma ke naye atholakala kuyo ndawo makhala okukhunye awaye kuyona ke ingakho ngishilo ukuthi ke inhloso kwakuwukuthola iqiniso kwaye futhi ke kwakufanele nokuthi ke ngicwaningeke noma ke ubufakazi ke ukuze ngizokwazi ukuthi ke nginale plan enginayo yokuthi ngiqhubeke ngalo uphenyo.
So if perhaps, my Lord, my response is understood to be saying, when I read their statements, this is now the people who are in the house, I found it unreliable or unquestionable. That's not what I meant. I simply said because there was this cloud, this allegation that there were no intruders, I parked them because I felt if I look there and rely on that, I may be contaminated in an answer that I need to find as to whether they were intruders or not.
Futhi ke uma kuukuthi impendulo yami izwakaleke ngenye indlela ke mina ke uma bengithi ke bekukhona ke ungabazi khona ke bengithi ke ngoba ke manje kunalokhu okukhulunywayo noma le insolo ekhulunywayo ke ake ngimeke ukuthi ke ngibheke ukuthi bona bathini kodwa ke ngibheke nako lunye ke futhi uhlangothi ngoba uma ngizobheka kubona ke kuphela ke ngenzeka ke ukuthi ke kube nomthelela obakhona ke ingakho sengibheke nako lunye uhlangothi noma izitatimende zabanye.
That's my answer, my lord.
Thank you. Now, having gone through the statement of the witnesses of the people who were in the house, is there a time when you went to interview them regarding the content of their statements that you found in the docket that you inherited?
So to understand, my lord, is this now after I've formed a decision that they were intruders and now running with the investigation? I just want to understand the question proper. This question, is it in relation after I've analyzed the docket and was of the view that they were intruders and pursuing that investigation? Perhaps if I can get a clarity on that aspect.
Thank you. At any point, after having read the statement and formulated your own view, or even before you could have formulated your own view, in other words, after receiving the case docket from the initial investigating team, did you ever go and interview the people who were in the house?
Not all of them, my lord. The people that I interacted with is Mr. Tumelo Madlala, Mthokozisi Twala, and Longo Twala, my lord. Then thereafter, another person that we interacted with was Miss Khumalo. That was the mother of the Khumalos, the two sisters, my lord.
Abantu engakhulumisana nabo ke noma ke engaya kubona ke kwaku uTumelo Madlala, Mthokozisi kanye noLongo Twala, omunye futhi ke kwaku Khumalo kusho ukuthi ke uma uKelly kanye naye ke uZandi.
I forgot, my lord. Also, Miss Zandi Khumalo.
Naye ke uZandi Khumalo.
It is Miss Kelly Khumalo that I did not interact with, my lord.
Umuntu engazange ngikhulumisana naye ke kwaku yena Miss Kelly Khumalo.
Now, you said what is the reason why you did not go and interview Miss Kelly Khumalo?
My lord, as I said, I mean, if you look at the confessions, she was cited as a trigger point. And as I said, it was prosecutorial driven. You obtain these things, you share with the NPA, and you get guidance as to who you can approach and who you can talk to, my lord.
Imbangela ke nomizathu sokuthi ke ngakhulumi ke naye uMiss Kelly Khumalo uma ubheka ke istatement ke esogonyuluko ke esenziwa esasikhomba kuyena ke ukuthi uyena ke owayesemuva kwakho ke lokho noma ukuthi bengishilo ke ukuthi ke uma kunalokho okutholayo uyahamba ke uye kulabo abashushisayo bese kuba yibona ke abakutshelayo ukuthi ukhuluma nobani ungakhulumi nobani.
Hence, my lord, insofar as the approach towards her, the position that I wanted to adopt is through that application that A225, when I made an application for the J50, that was my approach towards trying to interact with her, insofar as the evidence and allegation that were contained towards her.
Eyami ke indlela yokuthi ke ngizama ukuthi ngikhulume naye ke noma ke ngihlangane ke naye iyona ke le engithola ubufakazi ngayo yayo iJ50 noma ke incwadi ke leyana ngangisicela kuyona ukuthi ke aboshwe ke ngabo ubufakazi.
Thank you, Brigadier. Now, having interviewed Madlala, Mthokozisi Twala, Longwe, Khumalo, and Zandi, were you then satisfied that what you had interviewed them about vis-a-vis the contents of their statements was in the same line? Actually, there was signage there.
Yes, I was. The essence of it, my lord, there was a signage in that they were intruders. That was the bottom line. But if one looks at, the defense has seen the statements. There were statements that were made over and over again, trying to explain certain things, inconsistencies, Khumalo, even the issues of the parade. So there were a lot of things. But the essence of my interview, my lord, was not to reject the statements, but it was really just to confirm that the statements made in the docket, they stand by them, and the issue of them standing to the assertion that indeed they were intruders that came into the house.
Manje ke usukhulume naye ke uTumelo Madlala, Mthokozisi Twala, uLongo Twala, uMakhumalo kanye noZandi ke ube usuthola ke ukuthi impela khona ke ukuhlangana kulokho ke owawubheka yebo ke ngoba ke kwakhona ke inkulumo ezazikhona ke ukuba kungahlangani ke khulunywa ngawo ke ama-ID parade abamele bayakwazi ke lokho kodwa ke nje egcineni yebo unobheka ke futhi ukuthi ngabe lokho okubhaliwe kuyitatimende sakho zabo basamile yini kuona impela ke batholakala ukuthi yebo babe khona noma babe khona abantu abangena lapho ngalelo langa.
Thank you. Was that the only consideration that you had to interview these witnesses for? Just to determine whether or not they were intruders?
The other aspect, my lord, when I spoke to and I dealt with this part with Mr. Madlala and Mr. Twala, Mthokozisi Twala, was in relation to the ID parade, where they said, I think Mr. Madlala said he's 50-50, he's not certain that he can, and Mr. Twala, this is now Mthokozisi Twala, also saying is not sure. I think that is the other aspect out of that discussion where we were intending or thinking of pursuing an identity parade, and I think that's related to that, my lord. Statements were obtained and attached and discovered to the defense as well to this effect.
Okunye futhi ke okukhuluma naye ke uThumelo Madlala kanye noMthokozi Sithwala mala nokuthi ke kiwe ke kwi parade noma ke kwi comba parade ID parade la asho ke khona ke uThumelo Madlala ukuthi yena ke u50-50 mala nokuthi angakhomba noma angakhombi naye ke uMthokozi Sithwala esho ukuthi ke akanaso isiqiniseko sokuthi ke angakhomba ke uma engaya kuyona itatimende zabo zathathwa ke nabameli bayinika.
That's what I recall at this stage, my lord.
Iloko ngikukhumbulayo.
So another consideration was, the second consideration, over and above the determination on whether they were intruders or not, was the issue of the ID parade, which had to do with the identity of the intruders, not so. Of the alleged intruders, not so.
Yes, but the correct context, my lord. The consideration insofar as to whether they were intruders or not was not based on the statements of what the people who were in the house were saying or the interview. It was formed before I spoke to them. I made that decision based on the facts that I spoke about independently from them. When it was clear that they were intruders, it was part of the investigation to align the investigation, not to get an opinion as to whether they were intruders or not. I had already formed that decision based on the objective evidence that I related to, my lord, earlier.
Ukhuluma ke nabantu itatimende lezi ke kwangasikona ke ukuthola manje ukuthi kwaba khona abantu abangena noma cha. Lokho ke ngangise ngiqedile ke ngakho ngangise ngifinyelele kona ke ngokubufakazi ke enganginabo mina ke. So uma ngiyabona ke kwangasikona ukuthola ukuthi bakhona yini abantu abangena noma cha. Mina ke ngangise ngitholile lokho.
In other words, my lord, at that stage, I was convinced they were intruders. It wasn't to ascertain that. I was convinced. It was simply just to ascertain that they are still around, for example, because you can't build on the case when you don't know whether your witnesses are still around. Are they in a good and held position? Should you want to pursue the matter? Will they be able to come and give evidence if the matter takes that direction? So you ascertain to know who is available and who is not available. And that is why at that stage, the discovery of Mr. Makaleni as being the deceased also came up at that stage, because I was, and as well as Mr. Ngashe Sina as him being passed on. Those were found out at that stage, because it was not only the Khumalos, it was just to look at critical witnesses as to where they are and what is their status in terms of being healthy and life and death situation, my lord.
Futhi ke ngaleso sikhathi leso kwakuqinisekisaka nokubheka ukuthi ofakazi laba basekhona ke bakuyiphi indawo ngabe isimo sabo ke sezempilo sikanjani ke ingakho ke ngoba ke angeke uqhubeke phambili necala ke ofakazi bengekho noma ungazi ukuthi isimo sofakazi bakho sihamba kanjani ingakho ke kwatholakala ngaleso sikhathi leso ukuthi ke umnumzana uMakeleni akasekho kanye futhi naye ke ubaba uNgatshe.
Yes, my lord, that's my answer.
Thank you. Brigadier, my question is very simple. The second reason why you went to see or to interview these witnesses was in relation to the identity of the perpetrator or of the alleged intruders, not so?
No, not so. You see, that is why, my lord, it's important to explain. I was specific that with regard to the issue of their identity, it was only Mr. Twala and Mr. Thumelo Madlala that I interviewed. Hence, I said statements were obtained and they were attached in the docket. That did not relate to everyone.
Ingakho ke kubalekile ukuchaza ngoba ngishilo ukuthi mayela nodaba leli lokho ukuthi kuhanjwe ke kuyokhonjwa phecelezi ke ID parade ngakhuluma ke noThumelo Madlala kanye naye ke uMthokozi Sithwala ngasho ke nokuthi nestatement ezimayela nalokho zathathwa ke futhi zikhona ke zingxenye dokotela nabameli bayithola.
Thank you. Maybe we were miles away from each other, but let me bring you very near. At the inception of this trial, the state made an opening address to the court and said to the court, at the core of this trial, it is the identity of the perpetrators, or what you refer to as the intruders. The state further told this court that this trial will be about determining, it did not say exactly what I'm saying, I'm paraphrasing the state, that the duty of this court or of this trial will be to try and get to know who the perpetrators who committed these offenses were. That is what I'm trying to say. Do you understand?
I understand, my lord.
Thank you. Now, you are saying you had already formulated a viewpoint that they were intruders.
That's correct, my lord. Before, yes. That view was I came to that conclusion, my lord, after analyzing the docket and before interviewing anyone.
Yebo kuqiniso ngishilo ukuthi mina ke ngase ngitholileke ukuthi ngempela babe khona abantu abangena lapho emuva kokuthi sengithe ngaqhubungula lona ke idokotela leli ngaphambi kokuthi ngikhulume nomuntu noma kube khona umuntu engikhuluma naye.
Now, the second consideration why you had to go and interview these witnesses, you say you had to go and find out whether or not Madlala and Mthokozi Sithwala would be able to identify those that are referred to as the alleged perpetrators, not so, who got into the house, not so?
Yes, in the event an ID parade is held, my lord.
Yebo kuyiqiniso-ke ngaya kuyena-ke uTumelo Madlala kanye naye-ke uMthokozi Sithwala ngelithi uma kuwukuthi-ke kungathatha isinqumo-ke sokuthi-ke kube ne-ID parade noma kuyokhonjwa-ke ukuthi bangaba isimo yini sokuthi-ke bangabakhomba.
Why did you have to limit your inquiry on whether or not they will be able to identify the alleged perpetrators to Madlala and Mthokozi Sithwala and not extend it to all the adults who were in the house?
My lord, firstly, you look into what people say in their statements. That's number one. But two, you are guided. As I've said, this was a prosecutorial driven investigation as to who you can pursue for what purpose. It's not a willy-nilly type of an approach. So that was the guidance that the investigation was taking, and hence those two were approached, my lord.
Kwangani-ke ukuthi-ke kube uTumelo Madlala noMthokozi Sithwala kuphela-ke abantu bayokhulumisana nabo-ke mayelana nalolu daba lokuthi-ke bangakhomba noma cha. Ngishilo-ke ukuthi noma-ke okokuqala uyabheka-ke ukuthi-ke abantu noma ofakazi bathini-ke kuyitatimende zabo. Ngishilo-ke nokuthi futhi-ke ukuthi-ke lana-ke bekuthi uma unobufakazi uyahamba-ke uyokulabo abashushisayo bese bekutshela ukuthi ubani ungaya kuyena ungayi kuyena mayelana nani noma mayelana naluphi udaba. Kwangasikhona nje ukuthi-ke uyazenzela-ke lokho ufuna ukuthi ukwenze.
Thank you. Now, you're speaking about the fact that this was a prosecutor-driven investigation, and you mentioned the names of Advocate Juliet Mahwata, Advocate L.B. Leonard, and the Honorable Advocate George Baloyi, who's a lead prosecutor in this case, not so?
It is so, my lord.
Ngikhulumile-ke ngabo-ke abameli noma-ke ama-advocate labo abalile Mahwata, u-Advocate Baloyi okuyena-ke ohola-ke ithimba elishushisayo-ke kuleli cala kuyiqiniso.
Are you then saying, Brigadier, that the reason why you did not extend the inquiry as to the ability to be able to identify the alleged intruders who got into the house to the other members who were in the house as well was because the team of prosecutors who were leading you did not give you specific instruction to go and find out from them whether or not they were able to identify these people?
No, what I'm saying, my lord, is that such was discussed. You get guidance as to who you can pursue based on the facts that are before court. I mean before them in terms of the dockets, and you pursue it accordingly. For example, my lord, let me deal with Ms. Kelly Khumalo. At that stage, when we had sight of all the accused, Ms. Kelly Khumalo was already now. It was alleged that she was a trigger point. How do you pursue such a person when there's allegation against her? Because in the main docket, prior to us having sight of this accused, she was a witness whom her phone was stolen. Subsequent to that, investigation is done. She's now fingered as a trigger point. How do you pursue that? I mean, it does not take even a genius to see that even you can't. She's a person of interest. Therefore, investigation must be done either to corroborate or disapprove those facts. Unfortunately, the investigation proved otherwise, and I spoke about that, including the application. That's the first aspect. The second one, my lord, and we dealt with this part in relation to Mr. Longetwala. There was a bag, and I've explained that issue of the bag that was seemingly common, a see-through bag of money that was found in his bag, his cell phone downloadings, as well as that of Ms. Kelly Khumalo and Advocate Mrs. Client, accused 3. So there are questions there as well. You need to look into that objectively. How do you use that person? Mrs. Khumalo Senior, initially, right at the inception of this matter, when I was not involved, the first investigation team, there was an ID parade held, and the wrong person was identified and arrested, arraigned, and eventually the case fell apart. So you take those things into consideration when you want to conduct an ID parade. You can't be oblivious to ignore those facts because they are critical, my notice, to who do you call to attend an ID parade.
Ingabe manje uthi-ke isinqumo-ke sokuthi-ke laba abanye-ke kungayiwa kubona-ke ingoba-ke manje kwashiwo-ke noma basho bashushise kuwena-ke ukuthi cha bona-ke angayiwa noma bangabhekwa-ke cha. Uzokhumbula ukuthi-ke eqaleni-ke ukuthi uMs Kelly Khumalo-ke mangangaya kuyena-ke ngiqonde kuyena-ke ukuthi-ke waye ufakazi. Manje-ke sekuvela-ke manje itatimende sekukhonjwa kuyena-ke ukuthi manje naye useyasoleka-ke uya kanjani-ke kumuntu onjalo. uLongwethwala kunalesikhwama-ke semali esasikhona kumakhala ekhukhwini wakhe sikhona-ke nakuyena-ke uMs Kelly Khumalo kanye futhi-ke nakuloyo uMr noma u-Advocate Mnisi amele manje-ke uzoya kanjani-ke kuyena ukuthi umsebenzise. Naye-ke uMakhumalo okuyena-ke umama kaKelly-ke eqaleni-ke noma kuthiba leli lokuqala elaliphenya khona-ke i-ID parade eyayikhona-ke lapho wakhomba-ke umuntu engasiyena-ke umuntu loyo wayovela-ke enkantolo kodwa-ke icala lelo alizange liye ndawo. Manje uyazibheka-ke lezo zinto noma into ezikanjalo.
Are you done, Brigadier?
Yes, I'm done, my lord.
Thank you. My question, Brigadier, is you only approached Madlala and Mthokozi Sithwala about a possibility of attending an identification parade. Now, my question was, why did you not also approach the Longethwala, Khumalo, Zandi, and Kelly, and find out from them as whether would they be able to attend an identification parade in order to possibly identify these alleged intruders. And your answer was, this was a prosecutor, it was a prosecutor-guided investigation. Now, I ask you, would that be the reason, therefore, why you did not approach these other 4 other people who were in the house? Because prosecutors did not give you specific instruction to go find out from them whether or not they'll be able to identify these people who were in the house.
That's a good question. This has just answered the question. He mentioned that Ms. Kelly Khumalo was a trigger point and person of interest. Longethwala, the issue of the see-through were common to him, to Ms. Kelly Khumalo, and to accused number 3, and that Khumalo identified the wrong person. Why is the question not being repeated, my lord? In fact, counsel is incorrectly just quoting one aspect of the answer that Brigadier Ugininda gave. He's not referring to what Brigadier Ugininda answered to what I've just quoted now.
As it is the court, my lord. Say, I am specifically referring to the period subsequent to you taking over the investigation. I'm not talking about what happened when the case was investigated by the previous team. We're talking about your era, the Ugininda era, in the investigation of this case. Do you understand?
I understand, my lord,
Thank
and
you.
my answer is in relation to my presence, because prior to me coming on board, there was these accused before court were not cited as this assertion or the evidence that suggests that Ms. Kelly Khumalo was a trigger point was never there. In terms of the evidence, there was no statement except the assertion of the father of the deceased, and I refer to that, my lord, where at some stage accused four's name was cited, but then there's nothing that became of it. As many other people were cited, then it was a dead end. The answer that I'm giving, my lord, refers to the time when I was leading this team, and this assertion I'm making it when I was now the lead investigator in this matter.
Impendulo enginikeza ngayo ke impendulo kangikhulume ke ngokwenzeka ke ngaphambilini ke ukuthi mina ke ngiphenye icala leli ngoba ke ngaphambi kokuthi kube yimina ophenyayo abasola labo abaphambi kwenkantolo akukho la abakhonjwa khona ke noma ekwakhulunywa ngabo khona ke ngaphandle ke kwala khona ubaba wakhe ke umufi akhuluma ke ngaye umsola ke wesine kodwa akukho ke okwenzeka ke lapho kodwa manje uma ngiphendula ngikhuluma ngesikhathi mina sekuyimina ophenyayo.
Brigadier Ugininda, let me put it this way. Subsequent to the arrest of the people or of the accused that are before court here and before their appearance at court, did you go to these people who were in the house and say to them, look, there are people that we have arrested that you suspect that they could have been involved in the case? Would you be able to attend an identification parade to go and see whether those that you saw on the 26th of October 2014 could be these ones that we have arrested?
My lord, I've answered this part.
What was your answer?
My answer was that the only people I approached with that aspect, it's Mr. Prosecutorial and Limulahlile. I've indicated why the others were not approached. And it will be incorrect, my lord, to say the prosecutors are the ones who said don't do it. I simply cited that it was prosecutorial driven investigation, meaning you see to get guidance, but you also contribute because you talk with the prosecution. And I indicated why there was doubt insofar as other witnesses as to whether we can call them as witnesses to attend the ID parade or not. So it was simply giving basis that it was not simply an ignorance that we're only selecting Limulahlile and Prosecutorial. There were reasons on the others. If those reasons were there, the likelihood, my lord, they would have been approached as well and asked, my lord.
Ngiphenduleke umbuzo lona kodwa ngizophendula ukuthi ngishilo ke mayelana ke nofakazi laba ke ukuthi kungani ke kuyiwe ke nake uTumelo kanye futhi naye ke uMthokozisi nokuthi futhi akusona ke iqiniso ukuthi ke abashushisi ibona bathatha leso sinqumo ukuthi uma ke uphenya uyahamba ukukhulumisana nabashushisi nawe ke unovo lwakho olufakayo noma ke olushoyo kukona lokho ngichazile ke nezizathu zokuthi ke kungani ke abanye laba bona ke kungayiwa noma ngayanga bona ngiyofuna ukwazi ke ukuthi uma ngayiwa kayidi parade bangaba khona yini.
But the ultimate decision, my lord, lies with the NPA, as everyone knows, because they're the ones who knows how the docket must be prepared as they will be prosecuting it. So all I was saying was that there was this discussion and that was the view that was adopted.
Kodwa ke isinqumo ke noma ke ekugcineni ke kuba ke iNPA noma ke abashushisi ke ekuyibona ke bathatha leso isinqumo ngoba ke ibona ke abazoshushisa bayazi ukuthi idokodo ke kufanele libe kanjani.
That's my answer, my lord.
Let us simplify this thing. Actually, it is very simple, very simple. My question is, subsequent to the arrest, these accused persons that are before court, did you go back to the witnesses who were in the house and say to them, I have now arrested 5 people. I therefore would love you to attend an identification parade for you to go find out if you're able to identify 1, 2, or 3 of them as those people who got into the house on the 26th of October 2014. Did you do that?
My Lord, I'm saying, it's just that it's put in a wrong context because I don't have the date. I'm saying, you cannot approach and I've given reasons, my Lord, as to why.
Lana ke bese ngishilo ke lokho bengibheka ke nje manje ke ama dates ngoba ke lokho kwenzeka ke ngaphambilini kokuthi ke basola ke bayobingelela ke imanje ilanga leli ke abayovela ngalo enkantolo bekubheka nje ama dates ukuthi ke ngaya ke kutumela madlala kanye naye ke umthokozi sithwala abanye ke angiyanga kubona izathu ke ngishilo ukuthi kwakungani.